Please, Sarah whispered into the darkness, her voice cracking. Someone. Anyone. But no one ever came. No one except her. Margaret Bellamy descended the attic stairs twice a day, morning and evening, with a tray of cold leftovers and a smile that never reached her eyes. She was 63 years old, impeccably dressed even at 7 a.m, and she had kept Sarah chained in this attic for 9 months. You should be grateful, Margaret said, setting down tonight's dinner. Stale bread and what might have been chicken soup 3 days ago. After what you did to my family's reputation? You're lucky Thomas didn't throw you in the river. Sarah's throat tightened. She'd heard that name before. Thomas Bellamy, Margaret's late husband, the man who'd built this sprawling estate on the outskirts of Boston. But Thomas had been dead for 2 years, and Sarah? She'd never even met him. I didn't do anything, Sarah managed, her lips cracked and bleeding. I've told you 1,000 times. I don't even know who you are. Margaret's face twisted with rage. She moved so quickly Sarah didn't have time to flinch. The slap echoed in the confined space, and Sarah's head snapped to the side, stars exploding behind her eyes. Liar! Margaret shrieked. You poisoned my husband's mind! You made him change the will! You took everything from my sons! Sarah tasted blood. This was the same accusation over and over. But it made no sense. She'd been a waitress at a diner in Southie. She'd never had money, never had connections, never had anything that would interest people like the Bellamys. She'd been walking home from her shift that night, just walking, when the black van pulled up beside her. That was 9 months ago. Your son, Sarah whispered because she had to try, had to make this woman see reason. Marcus, you said he's coming home soon, when he sees what you've done. Marcus knows exactly what kind of woman you are, Margaret interrupted coldly. He'll thank me for protecting the family. She turned toward the stairs, taking the dim lantern with her. Wait, Sarah called out desperately. The chain, it's cutting into my skin. It's infected. I need... The door slammed shut. The lock clicked, and Sarah was alone again in the suffocating darkness, listening to the sound of her own ragged breathing. She pulled her knees to her chest, ignoring the way the metal cuff bit deeper into her flesh. She'd tried screaming during the first month. She'd tried breaking the chain during the second. She'd tried reasoning, pleading, bargaining. Nothing worked. The Bellamy estate sat on 40 acres of private land. The nearest neighbor was miles away. And according to Margaret's bitter monologues, the entire household staff had been dismissed after Thomas's death. It was just the two of them now. Just Sarah, and the woman who was convinced she'd destroyed her family. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to remember what sunshine felt like. Marcus Bellamy had been in Milan for 8 months, closing a deal that should have taken 6 weeks. The Bellamy family didn't deal in real estate or shipping or any of the legitimate businesses printed on their corporate filings. They dealt in power, in influence, in the kind of operations that required a man to shake hands with politicians at charity galas and break fingers in warehouse basements, sometimes on the same night. Marcus had inherited his father's empire at 34, and he ran it with the cold efficiency of a surgeon. No loose ends, no witnesses, no mercy for those who crossed him. But he'd never expected to come home and find his entire world built on a lie. The private jet touched down at Logan just after midnight. Marcus loosened his tie as his driver navigated the familiar roads toward the family estate, his mind already cataloging the dozen fires he'd need to put out tomorrow. The shipment from Rotterdam, the union dispute at the docks, the ambitious underboss who needed to be reminded of his place. His phone buzzed, a text from his younger brother, Julian. Don't go to the house. Meet me at the warehouse. Now. Marcus frowned. Julian wasn't the dramatic type. If he said now, he meant it. Change of plans, Marcus told his driver. Pier 17. 20 minutes later, Marcus walked into the warehouse where they stored shipping containers that customs would never be allowed to inspect. Julian was pacing near the office, his usually smooth demeanor fractured. Tell me, Marcus said simply. Julian ran a hand through his dark hair. It's about Dad. About how he died. Heart attack. We know this. No. Julian's voice was tight. That's what Mother told us. But I started looking into things after you left. The will, specifically. Did you know Dad changed it 3 weeks before he died? Marcus went very still. Changed it how? He left a substantial portion, almost 40% of his liquid assets, to someone named Sarah Mitchell, a 26-year-old woman from Southie, a nobody. The name meant nothing to Marcus. An affair? That's what Mother claimed. She said this woman had seduced Dad, manipulated him, poisoned his mind against the family. Said she was going to contest the will, prove Dad wasn't of sound mind when he made the change. And, Julian's jaw clenched, Sarah Mitchell disappeared 10 months ago. Vanished without a trace the night before she was supposed to meet with Dad's lawyer to claim the inheritance. Police found her apartment abandoned, her car parked on the street, her purse inside with all her cards and cash. No body, no leads. Case went cold. Marcus felt something dark and cold settle in his chest. You think Mother? I think we need to have a conversation with her, Julian cut in. Tonight. They drove to the estate in silence. The house was dark except for a single light in the kitchen window. Marcus had been born in this house, had learned to shoot in the woods behind it, had buried his father in the cemetery on the hill. He'd never imagined it could harbor secrets that would make him physically ill. Margaret was in the kitchen, wearing a silk robe and pouring herself a glass of wine. She looked up when her sons entered, and her face lit up with a smile that didn't quite hide the tension around her eyes. Marcus, darling, I didn't know you were coming home tonight. I would have prepared. Where is she? Marcus's voice was flat. Margaret's smile faltered. Where is who? Sarah Mitchell. The color drained from his mother's face, but she recovered quickly. Too quickly. That woman? How should I know? She disappeared, thank God. Probably ran off with the money she stole from... She never got the money, Julian interrupted. She disappeared the day before the payout. And you're a terrible liar, Mother. Margaret's fingers tightened around the wine glass. How dare you accuse me? Marcus moved then, faster than his mother could react. He took the glass from her hand and set it down with deliberate care. When he spoke, his voice was the same tone he used when ordering executions. You have 10 seconds to tell me where she is. If you lie to me, I will tear this house apart board by board until I find the truth. And then I will never speak to you again. 1. Marcus, you don't understand. 2. She was going to destroy everything your father built. 3. She's a con artist, a manipulator. 4. Margaret's composure finally cracked. She's in the attic. She's alive. I swear she's alive. I just needed to keep her away until we could contest the will, until I could prove. Marcus was already moving. He took the stairs 3 at a time, Julian close behind him. The attic. He'd played in the attic as a child, built forts among the dusty furniture and forgotten portraits. He'd never imagined it as a prison. The door was locked. Marcus didn't hesitate. He threw his shoulder against it once, twice, and the old wood splintered. The space beyond was pitch black and smelled of sweat and fear and something else. Infection. Get a light, Marcus snapped. Julian fumbled with his phone's flashlight, and the beam cut through the darkness. And that's when Marcus saw her. She was huddled against the far wall, one arm stretched at an unnatural angle where a chain connected her wrist to a support beam. Her clothes hung off a frame that was far too thin. Her face was turned away, her hair matted and dull. But she was breathing. Jesus Christ, Julian whispered. Marcus crossed the space in 4 strides and dropped to his knees beside her. Up close, he could see the infected wound where the metal had rubbed her skin raw. Could see the bruises in various stages of healing. Could see the way she trembled even in unconsciousness. Sarah, he said, and his voice came out rougher than he'd intended. Sarah, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open. Gray eyes, he noticed. The color of storm clouds, and focused on him with difficulty. She flinched back, or tried to, but the chain stopped her. Please, she whispered. Please. I don't know anything. I don't know about any money. I just want to go home. Something in Marcus's chest cracked open. He'd seen fear before. He'd caused it often enough. But this was different. This was the fear of someone who'd been broken down piece by piece, and still somehow found the strength to beg for mercy. I'm getting you out, he said. Julian, get bolt cutters. Now. On it. Marcus shrugged off his jacket and draped it over Sarah's shoulders. She stared at him like he might be a hallucination. Who are you? She managed. Marcus Bellamy, this is my house, and I'm going to fix this. Your house. Her laugh was bitter and broken. She's your mother. She said you knew. She said you approved. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. I've been out of the country for 8 months. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know. Sarah studied his face, and whatever she saw there must have convinced her, because she sagged against the wall. I didn't do anything, she whispered. I don't even know why your father left me money. I only met him once. Tell me. Julian returned with the bolt cutters before she could answer. It took 3 tries to break through the chain. His mother had used industrial-grade metal, and when Sarah's arm finally dropped free, she bit back a scream. Hospital, Marcus said, already scooping her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Julian, call Dr. Reeves. Tell him to meet us at the private facility, and tell him if he mentions this to anyone. I'll destroy his career. Wait, Sarah protested weakly. Your mother is no longer your concern. Marcus carried her down the stairs. Margaret was in the foyer, her face streaked with tears, reaching out as if to touch her son's arm. Marcus, please, you have to understand. He looked at her then, and his expression was so cold that she actually took a step back. Get out of my house, he said quietly. Pack a bag. Be gone in an hour. And if I ever see you again, I will forget you're my mother. This is my home. It's my home, my name on the deed, and you're no longer welcome in it. He looked at Julian. Make sure she leaves. Change all the locks. Hire security. Marcus, she's your mother. She's a kidnapper. She's a torturer. And she did it under my roof, using my name. His voice dropped even lower. If she's still here in an hour, I'm calling the police. He didn't wait for a response. He carried Sarah out to his car, laying her gently in the back seat. She was shaking now, shock finally setting in, and Marcus grabbed a blanket from the trunk to wrap around her. Stay with me, he said, because her eyes were starting to close. Sarah, stay awake. Tired, she murmured. I know, but you need to stay awake a little longer. Can you do that for me? She nodded, but he could see the effort it cost her. Marcus drove faster than was probably wise, one hand on the wheel and one eye on the woman in his back seat. Dr. Reeves met them at the private facility, a medical office that asked no questions and treated the kinds of injuries that couldn't be explained to hospital staff. How long has she been like this? Dr. Reeves asked as they transferred Sarah to an examination table. 9 months, apparently. The doctor's face went pale. Mr. Bellamy, fix her, Marcus interrupted. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you have to do. Fix her. Sarah woke up in a bed that was softer than anything she'd felt in months. For a moment she thought she was dreaming, that she'd finally lost her mind completely in that attic and conjured up some fantasy of rescue and comfort. But then she opened her eyes and saw the IV in her arm, the clean white walls, the medical equipment beeping steadily beside her. And she saw Marcus Bellamy sitting in a chair by the window, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're awake, he said. Sarah's throat was dry. How long? 2 days, Dr. Reeves had to treat the infection, get fluids in you, make sure there was no permanent damage. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. How do you feel? How did she feel? Sarah wasn't sure she even knew anymore. Everything hurt, but it was a distant hurt, probably dulled by medication. Her wrist was bandaged, her arm in a sling. "Like I got hit by a truck," she managed. "That's accurate." Marcus stood and poured her a glass of water from the pitcher on the bedside table. He held it carefully while she drank, and Sarah noticed that his hands were steady, even though his eyes held something raw and turbulent. "Your mother," Sarah said when she'd finished the water. "Is she gone? I meant what I said. She's out of the house, out of my life." His jaw tightened. "She's lucky I didn't do worse." Sarah should probably feel something about that. Pity, maybe, or vindication. But she was too tired for complex emotions. "Why did your father leave me money? I've been trying to figure it out for 9 months, and I still don't understand." Marcus sat back down. "Tell me how you met him." Sarah closed her eyes, reaching for the memory. It felt like a lifetime ago. "I was working at Sullivan's Diner," she said slowly. "It's a place in Southie. Nothing fancy. Your father came in one night, maybe a year ago. He was alone, which was unusual. We usually got the after-work crowd, not people in expensive suits. He sat at my counter and ordered coffee and pie. And we talked. Just small talk at first. But then he asked about my life, and I don't know why, but I told him. About how my parents died in a car accident when I was 19. About how I'd been trying to save money for college but kept falling behind. About how I'd wanted to be a teacher, but it felt impossible now." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. He was kind. He listened like he actually cared. And when he left, he gave me a $100 tip and told me not to give up on my dreams. "That's it?" Marcus asked. "That's it. I never saw him again, never heard from him. And then, 9 months ago, I got a call from a lawyer saying Thomas Bellamy had left me money in his will, and I needed to come sign some papers. I thought it was a scam at first." Her voice cracked. "I wish it had been." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "My father had a heart attack, but it wasn't random. He'd known for months that his heart was failing. The doctors gave him a year at most." He ran a hand over his face. "I think he spent that year trying to make amends. Trying to do some good with the fortune he'd built on things that weren't always legal or moral. So he left money to a random waitress. You weren't random to him. You represented something he'd lost. Innocence, maybe. Hope. A chance to help someone without strings attached." Marcus met her eyes. "My mother saw it as betrayal. She thought you'd seduced him, manipulated him. She couldn't accept that he might have just wanted to do something decent." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. "She chained me up for 9 months because your father was trying to be kind." "Yes." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither of them was quite ready to voice. "What happens now?" Sarah asked finally. Marcus leaned forward again. "Now you heal. You're staying at my house, in one of the guest rooms, obviously, with full-time nursing care until Dr. Reeves says you're recovered. No arguments. I can't, you can, and you will. This happened because of my family. I'm going to make it right." "Your mother is still your mother," Sarah pointed out. "If you help me, if you go against her, I don't have a mother anymore," Marcus said flatly. "I have a stranger who tortured an innocent woman and tried to justify it with paranoid delusions. That's not family. That's a liability I'm cutting loose." Sarah studied him, this man she'd known for all of 48 hours. He was handsome in the way dangerous men often were, sharp features, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth set in a perpetual line of command. His presence filled the room even when he was sitting still. But there was something else beneath the cold exterior, something that had driven him to tear apart his own house looking for her. Something that kept him sitting vigil by her bedside when he probably had a dozen criminal enterprises to manage. "Why do you care?" she asked softly. "You don't know me." Marcus was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then he said, "I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of. I've hurt people. I've destroyed lives. I've made choices that keep me up at night." He met her eyes. but I've never kidnapped an innocent woman and kept her chained in an attic. And when I found out it was done in my name, in my house, by someone I trusted," he broke off, his hands curling into fists. "It matters," he finished simply. "You matter. And I'm going to make damn sure nothing like this ever happens again." Sarah felt something shift in her chest. Not trust, exactly. It was too soon for that. But the beginning of something. The sense that maybe, possibly, she might actually be safe. "Okay," she whispered. Marcus nodded, and something in his expression eased. "Get some rest. I'll be here when you wake up." And he was. The Bellamy estate looked different in daylight. Sarah stood at the window of the guest room, a space easily twice the size of her old apartment, and watched the sun sparkle off the ornamental pond in the garden. It had been a week since her rescue, and Dr. Reeves had finally cleared her to walk around without supervision. Her wrist was healing. The infection was gone. She'd gained back 5 of the 15 pounds she'd lost, but the nightmares still came every night, and she couldn't stand to be in small spaces anymore. "You're up early." Sarah turned to find Marcus in the doorway, dressed in slacks and a button-down shirt, a coffee cup in each hand. He'd been like this all week, checking on her constantly, bringing her meals, sitting with her when the nightmares got too bad. It should have felt oppressive. Instead, it felt like being anchored to reality. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. Marcus handed her one of the coffee cups. "Nightmares again?" "How'd you guess?" "You have shadows under your eyes. And I heard you walking around at 3 in the morning." He leaned against the doorframe. "Want to talk about it?" Sarah sipped the coffee. He'd made it exactly how she liked it, which was oddly touching, and considered lying. But what was the point? "I dream I'm back there," she said quietly, "in the attic, and I keep trying to tell myself it's not real, that I got out, but my brain doesn't believe me. And then I wake up, and I have to convince myself all over again that I'm safe." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's normal. Trauma takes time to process." "How do you know?" "Because I've given people nightmares," he said bluntly. "I know what it looks like to break someone down, and I know it's not something you just bounce back from." Sarah set down her coffee cup. "Your mother kept saying you'd approve, that you'd understand why she did it." "I know. But you're not your mother, are you?" Marcus met her eyes. "No, I'm worse in a lot of ways. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. But I've never lied to myself about what I am. My mother convinced herself she was protecting the family. I don't have that luxury. I know exactly what I am." "And what's that?" "A monster with a code," he said simply. "I hurt people who get in my way, but I don't hurt innocent people. I don't hurt people who can't fight back. And I sure as hell don't kidnap women and chain them in attics." Sarah should be afraid of him. She knew that, logically. He'd essentially admitted to being a criminal, possibly a killer. But after 9 months of real fear, of existential terror, his honesty was almost refreshing. "What happens when I'm healed?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That's up to you. The money my father left you is still yours. My lawyers are working on processing the will now that you've been found. It's enough to go to college 10 times over. Enough to never worry about money again. But if you leave now, if you just take the money and disappear, you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. My mother has been committed to a psychiatric facility, but she has friends, she has resources, and she'll always blame you for what happened." Sarah's blood ran cold. "You're saying I'm still in danger?" "I'm saying you might be. Or," he paused, "or you stay. Here, under my protection. Let it be known publicly that you're under the Bellamy family's protection, that anyone who touches you answers to me." "Why would you do that?" Marcus pushed off from the doorframe and crossed to the window, standing beside her. Up close, Sarah could smell his cologne, see the faint scar on his jaw. "Because I want to," he said. "Because you deserve better than spending the rest of your life afraid. And because—" He stopped himself. "Because what?" He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Because I can't stop thinking about you," he said quietly. "About what you survived. About how strong you'd have to be to endure 9 months of hell and come out the other side still capable of kindness. Still capable of trusting me, even a little." Sarah's heart was pounding. "Marcus." "I'm not asking you to feel anything for me," he interrupted. "I know the situation is complicated. I know I'm part of the family that hurt you. But if you'll let me, I want to keep you safe. I want to give you the life my father wanted you to have." "And if I say yes?" Sarah asked softly. "If I stay under your protection? What does that mean, exactly?" "It means you live here, in your own wing of the house if you want. It means you have security. It means anyone who wants to hurt you goes through me first." He paused. "And it means I get to see you every day. Get to know you. Get to prove that not everyone in my family is a monster. Sarah should say no. She should take the money and run as far from Boston as possible. She should put the Bellamy family and all their dysfunction in her rearview mirror. But when she looked at Marcus, really looked at him, she saw something unexpected. She saw possibility. "Okay," she said. "I'll stay." Marcus's expression shifted, something fierce and possessive flashing across his face before he controlled it. "You won't regret it." "I hope not." He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face, and Sarah felt something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with fear. 3 months later, Sarah was sitting in Marcus's study, laptop open, filling out college applications. She'd gained back all the weight she'd lost and then some. The nightmares had faded to once or twice a week. The physical scars were healing, though she knew the emotional ones would take longer. But she was alive. She was safe. And slowly, impossibly, she was starting to feel almost happy. "How's the essay coming?" Marcus asked from behind his desk, where he was reviewing contracts that Sarah suspected were for things she didn't want to know about. "It's coming." She glanced at him over her laptop screen. "Though I'm not sure how to explain the 9-month gap in my work history." "Took time off to recover from a family emergency," Marcus suggested. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Unless you want to write, was kidnapped by a delusional woman and rescued by a handsome mob boss." Sarah laughed despite herself. "You're not a mob boss." "What am I then?" "You're complicated." Marcus set down his pen and gave her his full attention, the way he always did when they talked. Like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "Complicated," he repeated. "I'll take it." Over the past 3 months, they'd fallen into a routine. Breakfast together in the morning, dinner together in the evening, long conversations about everything and nothing, her dreams of teaching, his complicated relationship with his father's legacy, the books they'd both loved as children. He'd never pushed for more, never crossed the invisible line they'd both acknowledged existed between them. But Sarah could feel it shifting. She could feel it in the way his eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking, in the way he found excuses to touch her hand or brush her shoulder, in the way he smiled at her like she was something precious he was afraid to break. And if she was honest with herself, she felt it too. "Marcus," she said, closing her laptop, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you..." She hesitated, then forced herself to continue. "Do you think your father would be happy with how things turned out?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I think he'd be horrified by what my mother did. But yeah, I think he'd be happy you're safe. Happy you're going to get the education he wanted for you." "That's not what I meant." He raised an eyebrow. "What did you mean?" Sarah stood and crossed to his desk, her heart pounding. "I meant us. Do you think he'd be happy about us?" Marcus went very still. "Sarah, I see how you look at me," she said softly. "I see how you've been holding yourself back, trying to give me time and space, and I appreciate it. But Marcus, it's been 3 months, and I'm not broken anymore. I'm not fragile. You're still recovering. I'm recovered enough to know what I want." She reached out and took his hand. "And I want this. I want you." Marcus stood slowly, like he was afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. You're sure? Because once we cross this line, once I let myself have you, I won't be able to let go. You understand that, right? I'm not a casual man, Sarah. I'm possessive and jealous, and I play for keeps. Good, Sarah said, because I don't want casual either. I want real. I want complicated. I want someone who will tear the world apart to keep me safe. I can do that, Marcus said roughly. I am doing that. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was acclaiming, fierce and possessive, and everything Sarah had been craving without quite admitting it to herself. She kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring 3 months of tension and fear and hope into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to marry you, he said. Fair warning. Sarah laughed breathlessly. That's quite a declaration. I don't do anything halfway. You should know that about me by now. I'm starting to figure it out. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his hands framing her face. I mean it, Sarah. You're mine now. And I take care of what's mine. I protect what's mine. I'd burn the world down for what's mine. Then I guess I'm yours, Sarah whispered. 6 months after that, Sarah stood in front of the mirror in the master bedroom, their bedroom now, and adjusted her necklace. The diamond pendant had been Thomas Bellamy's gift to his wife on their wedding day, passed down through generations. Margaret had worn it for 40 years before Marcus reclaimed it from her belongings, and now it hung around Sarah's throat, glittering in the evening light. You look beautiful, Marcus said from the doorway, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. Sarah turned to face him. Are you sure about this? Making our engagement public? It's going to cause talk. Let them talk. He crossed to her and took her hands. I want everyone to know. I want it on record that you're mine, that you're protected, that anyone who even thinks about touching you will answer to me. Possessive. Always. He kissed her knuckles. But you knew that when you agreed to marry me. Sarah had said yes 3 months ago, when Marcus got down on one knee in the garden and offered her a ring that had probably cost more than most houses. She'd said yes, without hesitation, because by then she knew the truth. She'd fallen in love with the monster who'd saved her. Ready to face Boston's elite? She asked. Ready to show them my future wife, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. The charity gala was being held at the Museum of Fine Arts, and when they walked in together, every head in the room turned. Sarah could feel the weight of speculation, the whispers about who she was and where she'd come from. But Marcus kept his hand on the small of her back, a clear gesture of protection and possession, and no one was stupid enough to say anything unkind within his hearing. Julian found them near the champagne table. Little brother, he greeted, then smiled at Sarah. You look stunning. Thank you for coming, Sarah said warmly. She'd grown close to Julian over the past months. He'd been nothing but supportive, even helping coordinate security when Sarah decided to start volunteering at a women's shelter. Wouldn't miss it, Julian's expression turned serious. You should know. Mother's lawyers filed an appeal. They're trying to get her released from the facility. Marcus's jaw tightened. Let them try. I've got 3 psychiatrists ready to testify that she's a danger to herself and others. Just wanted you to know. Appreciated. Julian moved off to schmooze with potential business partners, and Sarah leaned into Marcus's side. Does it bother you? What happened with your mother? No, Marcus said simply. She made her choices. She has to live with the consequences. That's how it works in my world. No mercy? Not for people who hurt you. Sarah knew she should probably be disturbed by his intensity, but instead she felt cherished, protected, safe in a way she'd never experienced before. I love you, she said suddenly. Marcus looked down at her, his expression softening. I love you, too. More than I thought I was capable of, more than is probably healthy. I'll take it anyway, he smiled, then pulled her onto the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, Sarah caught sight of her reflection in one of the museum's glass cases. She barely recognized herself. The terrified woman chained in an attic was gone, replaced by someone stronger. Someone who'd survived the worst and come out the other side transformed. "What are you thinking?" Marcus murmured against her ear. "That I'm grateful," Sarah said honestly. "That your father left me money. That you came home when you did. That you're the kind of man who tears down his whole world to make things right. Best decision I ever made." "Even though it cost you your mother?" "She was never really my mother," Marcus said. "Not where it counted." "But you—" He spun her gently, then pulled her close. "You're everything. My future. My redemption. The reason I want to be better than I am." Sarah's eyes burned with happy tears. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "Get used to it. I'm planning to spend the next 60 years saying romantic things to you." "Just 60? Fine, 70, 80 if medical science cooperates." Sarah laughed and kissed him, right there in front of Boston's elite, not caring who saw or what they thought. Because she'd learned something important over the past year. She'd learned that sometimes the worst moments of your life lead to the best ones. She'd learned that danger and safety could coexist in the same person. And she'd learned that love, real, complicated, fierce love, was worth fighting for. Even when it came wrapped in a $1,000 suit and a reputation for breaking bones. They were married in the spring, in the garden where Marcus had proposed. It was a small ceremony. Just Julian and a few trusted friends, Dr. Reeves and the staff who'd helped care for Sarah during her recovery. Margaret was not invited. She was still in the psychiatric facility, and Marcus had made it clear she would stay there for the foreseeable future. Sarah wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers. Marcus wore a suit that probably cost more than Sarah's entire education fund, and couldn't stop staring at her like she might disappear if he looked away. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed her like it was the first time and the last time, and every time in between. "Mine," he murmured against her lips. "Yours," Sarah confirmed. That night, lying in their bed with moonlight streaming through the windows, Sarah traced the line of Marcus's jaw and thought about the impossible journey that had brought her here. "Do you ever wonder what your father would think?" she asked softly. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his hand running idle patterns on her back. "I think he'd be surprised, but I think he'd understand. He knew what it was like to want something good in a world full of darkness." "I'm going to use that money to help people," Sarah said. "Once I finish my degree, I'm going to start a foundation for women who've been hurt, who need protection." "I know. I've already set up the Shell Corporation and the legal framework." Sarah propped herself up on one elbow. "You what?" Marcus smiled. "You think I don't pay attention when you talk about your dreams? The Sarah Mitchell Foundation for Women's Safety. It's ready whenever you are." "You're impossible. I'm practical, and I take care of my wife." Sarah felt her heart swell impossibly full. "I was so scared," she admitted quietly. "In that attic. I thought I was going to die there. I thought no one would ever know what happened to me." Marcus's expression darkened. "I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. You found me when you were supposed to." She kissed him gently. "And now I'm here, with you, building a life that's better than anything I could have imagined." "It's only going to get better," Marcus promised. "I'm going to spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "I already don't regret it." "Good." He pulled her close, tucking her against his chest. "Because you're stuck with me now, for better or worse." "I prefer better." "Then better it is." Sarah closed her eyes and let herself drift off to sleep, safe in the knowledge that the monster who'd saved her would always keep her protected. That the family who'd hurt her had given her, unexpectedly, the greatest gift of all. A future. A home. A love that was fierce and complicated, and absolutely, wonderfully real. And in the morning, when she woke up to sunshine and coffee, and Marcus's smile, she would do what she did every morning now. She would be grateful. She would be strong. and she would keep building the beautiful, impossible life that had risen from the ashes of her darkest moment. Sarah was in the Foundation's new office downtown, reviewing grant applications, when her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Stay inside. Don't leave the building. Julian is on his way to you." Her blood ran cold. Marcus never texted like that, short, clipped, urgent, unless something was seriously wrong. She was reaching for her phone to call him when the office door burst open. But it wasn't Julian. It was a woman Sarah had never seen before, blonde and elegant in an expensive coat, her eyes wild with something that looked like grief mixed with rage. "You," the woman spat. "You're Sarah Mitchell." Sarah stood slowly, her hand moving toward the panic button Marcus had insisted on installing under her desk. "Who are you?" "I'm Catherine Bellamy, Marcus's ex-wife." The world seemed to tilt. Marcus had told Sarah about his marriage, a brief, disastrous union when he was 25, annulled after 8 months when they both realized they'd made a terrible mistake. He'd said she'd moved to Europe, remarried, started a new life. He'd never said she might come back. "Marcus and I are married now," Sarah said carefully, watching the other woman's hands. No visible weapons, but that didn't mean much. "Whatever you think, I know you're married. I read about it in the papers. The waitress who seduced old Thomas Bellamy and then trapped his son. Very clever." Sarah's jaw clenched. "That's not what happened." "Isn't it?" Catherine moved further into the office, and Sarah noticed security still hadn't arrived. Where were they? "You know what I think? I think you're just like Margaret said. A con artist, a manipulator. And now you've got your claws in Marcus so deep he can't see straight. Margaret is in a psychiatric facility because she kidnapped and tortured me for 9 months, Sarah said flatly. If you believe anything she says, you're as delusional as she is. Catherine's face twisted. She called me, from the facility. She told me everything. How you destroyed her family. How you turned Marcus against his own mother. How you're going to destroy him the way you destroyed Thomas. I didn't destroy anyone. Thomas Bellamy was going to help my sister. Catherine's voice cracked, and Sarah saw real anguish beneath the rage. My sister Anna. She was dying of cancer, and Thomas had promised to pay for experimental treatment in Switzerland. But then he met you, and suddenly all his money was going to some random waitress instead of to people who actually needed it. Sarah felt like she'd been punched. I didn't know. Anna died 3 months after Thomas changed his will. 3 months. She could have had 6 more years if she'd gotten that treatment. Catherine pulled something from her coat pocket, and Sarah's heart stopped. It was a gun. So now, Catherine said, her hand shaking but her aim steady, you're going to give me what I'm owed. You're going to transfer every penny Thomas left you to the account I specify. And then you're going to disappear. Leave Marcus, leave Boston, and never come back. Sarah's mind raced. The panic button was 3 feet away. Her phone was on the desk, but she'd never reach it in time. And security. Where the hell was security? Okay, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice calm. Okay, I'll do whatever you want. Just put the gun down. Transfer the money first. Catherine, listen to me. I didn't know about your sister. I'm so sorry for your loss. But Thomas made his own choices about his money. I didn't manipulate him. I barely knew him. Liar! Catherine's finger moved to the trigger. You're all liars. Thomas, Margaret, Marcus. All of you using people and throwing them away when you're done. The door slammed open and Julian appeared, followed by 2 security guards. Mrs. Bellamy, put down the weapon. Catherine spun toward them, and Sarah saw her chance. She lunged for the panic button and hit it hard, then dove behind her desk as a gunshot cracked through the air. For a horrible moment, Sarah thought she'd been hit. But no, the bullet had gone wide, lodging in the wall behind where she'd been standing. Everyone stay back, Catherine screamed, swinging the gun between Julian and the guards. I just want what's owed to me, what's owed to Anna's memory. Catherine. Julian's voice was surprisingly gentle. I knew Anna. I was at her funeral, and I know she wouldn't want this. You don't know anything. I know she was kind. I know she volunteered at the children's hospital every Tuesday. I know she made Marcus laugh when nothing else could during his divorce from you. Julian took a careful step forward. And I know she'd be heartbroken to see you like this. Catherine's face crumpled. She died because of him. Because Thomas Bellamy decided some stranger was more important than his goddaughter. She died because cancer is cruel and unfair, Julian said quietly. Not because of Sarah. Not because of anyone. The gun wavered. And then Marcus was there, moving with the silent efficiency Sarah had learned meant he was at his most dangerous. He crossed the room in 3 strides, disarmed Catherine with a practiced twist, and passed the weapon to one of the guards. Catherine collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Marcus pulled Sarah to her feet, his hands running over her frantically. "Are you hurt? Did she touch you?" "I'm fine. I'm okay." But Sarah's legs were shaking, and she was grateful when Marcus wrapped an arm around her waist to steady her. "Get her out of here," Marcus told the guards, nodding at Catherine. "Take her to the private facility, the one Dr. Reeves uses. Full psychiatric evaluation. And call her husband in London. Tell him what happened and that she needs help." Catherine looked up at him through her tears. "I hate you. I hate all of you." "I know," Marcus said, "but you're going to get help anyway, because Anna wouldn't want you to destroy yourself over this." As the guards led Catherine away, Sarah finally let herself lean fully into Marcus's embrace. Her whole body was trembling now, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. "How did you know?" she whispered. Margaret's facility called, said Catherine had visited her yesterday and left agitated. I put 2 and 2 together. His arms tightened around her. "I should have gotten here faster. I should have. You got here in time." Sarah pulled back to look at him. "Marcus, did you know? About Catherine's sister?" His expression was grim. "Not until today. My father never told me the details of why he was changing the will. I knew he was setting aside money for medical research and charitable foundations, but I didn't know about Anna specifically. She died because of money that went to me. She died because cancer is a nightmare and experimental treatments are expensive, and sometimes the world is just cruel," Marcus said firmly, echoing Julian's words. "That's not on you, Sarah. That's not on anyone." But Sarah couldn't shake the image of Catherine's grief-stricken face, couldn't stop thinking about a woman named Anna who'd died while Sarah was locked in an attic, unable to access money that might have saved her. "I want to do something," Sarah said, "for Anna's memory, for other people like her." Marcus studied her face. "What are you thinking?" "The foundation. We're focused on women's safety, but what if we expanded? Added a medical fund for people who need experimental treatments but can't afford them. Named it after Anna? That's a beautiful idea." "Will Catherine hate it?" "Probably at first," Marcus admitted. "But maybe eventually it'll help. Maybe it'll give her sister's death some meaning." Julian appeared in the doorway. "Police are here. They'll want statements from both of you." The next few hours were a blur of questions and paperwork and phone calls to lawyers. By the time Marcus finally brought Sarah home, it was past midnight, and she was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. "I thought I was done with this," she said as they walked through the front door. "I thought the crisis was over. I thought I could just live my life now." Marcus pulled her close. "Being part of my world means there will always be complications. People from my past, people who want to hurt me by hurting you. I wish I could promise you it'll never happen again, but I can't." "I know." Sarah looked up at him. "But I'm not running. I'm not going to let fear control me anymore. I survived 9 months in an attic. I can survive this too." "You shouldn't have to." "But I can." She touched his face. "And having you beside me makes it bearable, makes it worth it." Marcus kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something precious that might break. But Sarah knew better now. She wasn't fragile. She was steel wrapped in silk. She was a woman who'd been through hell and come out stronger. And she was tired of other people trying to write her story. Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into expanding the foundation. She met with medical researchers, talked to families who'd lost loved ones to diseases that might have been treatable with enough money, and designed a grant program that would bear Anna Prescott's name. Catherine was still in treatment, but her husband reached out to thank Sarah for not pressing charges. He explained that Catherine had been spiraling since her sister's death, drowning in grief and guilt, and looking for someone to blame. Sarah understood that impulse better than most people would. She also understood that sometimes the only way forward was through. The Anna Prescott Medical Innovation Fund launched on a Tuesday in June, with a ceremony at the Foundation's headquarters. Sarah gave a speech about second chances and making meaning from tragedy. Julian attended, along with several board members and local politicians Marcus had carefully cultivated. And at the back of the room, watching with an expression of complicated emotions, was Catherine. After the ceremony, she approached Sarah slowly, like approaching a wild animal. "I don't expect forgiveness," Catherine said quietly. "What I did was unforgivable." "You were grieving," Sarah replied. "That's not an excuse." "No, but it's an explanation." Sarah paused. "I read about Anna. She sounded like an amazing person." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. She was. She was better than all of us. Then let's honor that. Let's make sure other families don't have to watch someone they love die because of money. Catherine nodded slowly. "Marcus is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him too. Even though his world is dangerous, even though people like me will always come out of the woodwork." Sarah thought about that attic, about chains and darkness and 9 months of fear, about the man who'd torn his own family apart to save her. "Especially because of that," she said. "Because it means when Marcus Bellamy loves you, he loves you completely, no matter what it costs." Catherine managed a small smile. "You're stronger than you look." "I had to be." That night, Sarah and Marcus sat on their bedroom balcony, watching the lights of Boston twinkle in the distance. Sarah was curled against his side, his arm around her shoulders, their fingers intertwined. "Catherine came today," Sarah said. "I know. I had security watching her the whole time." "Of course you did." Sarah smiled despite herself. "She apologized. Think you'll ever forgive her?" "I think I already have. Not because she deserves it, necessarily, but because I'm tired of carrying anger around. I did enough of that in the attic." Marcus pressed a kiss to her temple. "You're remarkable." "I'm practical. Anger doesn't serve me anymore. Building something good does. The Foundation's going to change lives. That's the plan." Sarah turned to look at him. "Your father would be proud, I think, that his money is doing exactly what he hoped, helping people who need it." "He'd be proud of you," Marcus corrected. "You took something that should have destroyed you and turned it into purpose." "I had help." "You did the work." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Sarah felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe, or acceptance, or just the quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I love our life," she said finally. Marcus's arm tightened around her. "Even with the guns and the drama and the ex-wives?" "Even with all of that. Because I also get you, and mornings together, and building something that matters, and knowing that no matter what happens, you'll tear the world apart to keep me safe. Always. I know." Sarah tilted her face up for a kiss. "That's why I married you. Here, I thought it was my devastating good looks. That too." Marcus laughed, the sound warm and genuine, and Sarah felt her heart swell. This was what happiness looked like, she realized. Not the absence of struggle or pain or complications, but the presence of someone who made all of it worthwhile. Someone who saw your scars and loved you not despite them, but including them. Someone who understood that strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about how you put yourself back together afterward. "Thank you," Sarah said softly. "For what?" "For finding me. For believing me. For giving me a life I never imagined I could have." Marcus turned her in his arms so he could look at her properly. "You gave yourself that life, Sarah. I just provided the security and the resources. You did everything else. The healing, the growing, the choosing to build something good instead of letting the darkness win. We did it together. Together, Marcus agreed. That's how it works now. That's how it'll always work. And as Sarah kissed her husband under the stars, surrounded by the city that had once been her prison and was now her home, she understood something fundamental. The woman who'd been chained in that attic was gone. In her place was someone stronger, fiercer, more certain of her own worth. Someone who'd looked at the worst humanity had to offer and decided to answer it with grace. Someone who'd fallen in love with a dangerous man and made him want to be better. Someone who'd turned tragedy into purpose and pain into power. Sarah Mitchell Bellamy was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, a fighter, a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of, and she was just getting started. The foundation would grow. More women would be helped. More lives would be saved, both from violence and from disease. And through it all, Marcus would be beside her, protecting her, supporting her, loving her with the fierce totality that had saved her life once and would continue to enrich it every day forward. It wasn't the ending Sarah had imagined when she was serving coffee at a diner in Southie. It was better. It was real, and it was hers.